Hash Hush and Circle Up.
Welcome to On, the Hash House Harrier podcast for interviews, history, and stories. I'm your host, Ra.
Today on the podcast, we're right here in Toronto with a longtime hasher, somebody who's been on mismanagement of multiple clubs, organizing and in charge of many events. Welcome on the podcast, Flab. Hi, Flab.
Hi, Ra.
Flab, let's tell everybody your hashing origin story. When, where, and how did you become a hasher?
My hashing origin story has to include my husband's hashing origin story. My husband is Moon Man. His company sent him to work to Wichita, where Bird Brian had been sent about a year or so before that. Finding Wichita deadly dull, he started up a hash club there because Bird Brian had been a long-standing hasher all over the place. So he knew my husband through work, and he comes up to my husband and says, "So, would you like to?" And my husband said, "Yes." He didn't even know what he was agreeing to because he was that desperate for things to do in Wichita, which did not involve a church, guns, or country bars. He joined the hash there and had a great time and loved it. So when I came down for a visit, the company would pay for a return trip ticket once per month because they were there for that long. I could work remotely at the time, so I was the one who came down, and I stayed for a week or more. So he says, "Oh, you have to try this thing," and he dragged me out to the hash. He was so convinced that I would hate it, would never show up again, that he insisted that I get named that day so that I would have a name. And Bird Brian came up with the name.
What's the story that he came up with?
Flab stands for Fucks Like a Banshee. My husband told stories about me. His company had sent him to work in Ottawa, and I went up for a visit. I was there on a weekday, and they said, "Let's all go to the Canadian Airplane Museum because on Tuesday evenings it's free." So after work, we all schlepped over, and somehow it started that my husband's boss started quizzing him on every plane we saw. So before you get to the plaque, it's, "Okay, John, what's that plane?" And my husband was going boom, 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 boom. He was getting everything. As my husband's interest is really World War II aircraft. We get to this post-World War II aircraft. It's a little small, don't ask me, I'm not a plane person, but it's a 1 or 2 seater jet fighter. And he's a little stumped. What I didn't realize at the time is that he was stumped, not because he couldn't know what it was, but he couldn't know which of 2 airplanes that were going in his head that it was. So I thought I'd give him a very subtle clue. So I looked at the plate of the airplane and I said, "Oh, me in bed, Banshee." I thought it was going to be a subtle clue, but because he had in his head either Banshee or some other one, I don't know. So immediately he knew which one I was talking about, and the boss's face goes beet red. And so that's how come I got named. Bird Brian felt that no woman would enjoy being called Flab, and so he thought I would hate the name. I love the name Fucks Like a Banshee, and I actually like the name Flab because, as I always say, I'm not large enough for it to be accurate, and I'm not skinny enough for it to be ironic. So people are always scratching their head. "Did you lose a lot of weight?" Nope, this has always been me. So it's funny.
Yeah, that's great. We usually don't talk about what people do for a living, but let's just get this, because what you do, at least your interest in your studies, are literally out of this world.
They are. I'm a planetary geologist. I study the geology of other planets. My specialty is on the moon, and particularly impact craters on the moon. Yeah, I do a lot of outspacey stuff. Unfortunately, my career path has been lacking in those kinds of jobs because Canada has a lot of expertise in space, but it has mostly to do with build and robotics, or when it is remote sensing, it's all based on the Earth. So my specialty puts me out of the interest for those kinds of jobs. So I've been doing a lot of things that have nothing to do with my field of expertise, but at least I'm in Canada raising my kids in Canada with gun control and so far decent healthcare. With politics being what it is, who knows what's going to happen there.
You left Wichita after your visit. What happened with you and hashing when you got back to Canada?
I didn't get into it at all. I didn't look up the local kennel, nothing. But when my husband came back, he did. within days of coming back and said, oh, there's a hash on. So off he went to the hash. I was not particularly interested in joining. They ended up at the Madison Avenue pub for the on after. We were like living maybe a 15-20 minute walk from there at the time. Calls me up and says, hey, we're at the Madison, come on over. And so I came on over, and Kazoo was there. And Kazoo, being Kazoo, started being Kazoo. And he started saying, I can guess your breast size. And so it was a very quick initiation into the local hash. I was still not 100% on board, but then over the next couple of weeks, I got into it. My second or third hash was a Halloween hash. I think Sex Toy laid it, maybe Sex Toy and Rosé together. It was out in the beaches. That neighborhood gets really gung-ho for Halloween. And I decided to dress up as Xena Warrior Princess. I made this big fake sword, like a broadsword type of thing, out of cardboard and tinfoil. And then I made some sort of, like, again, out of cardboard and tinfoil, the male skirt, the little leaves of the male skirt. And I had some sort of stretchy black dress on underneath. And I made a scabbard for my sword in the back. And I'm running. And I think I might have even made a chakra too out of, again, cardboard and tinfoil. And I had such a fun time. And then it's like, okay, this is fun. Then another one is a middle of the road hash, nothing spectacular, but we ended up at a bar, and Sex Toy and I started flashing our breasts, and that was something I'd never done before ever in my life. And it was just, hey, this is liberating and fun to be not worried about societal conventions and propriety in a safe way. So I thought, this is good. And then my husband said, okay, let's go to the anniversary weekend, which was like literally 2 months after he came back. So I'd been in the hash for 2 months.
Let me just put this in the calendar. What year are we talking about?
1998. We went to the anniversary weekend, and at the time we were still at the Days Inn, and the Days Inn had a bar attached to it. I think it was the last year they had that bar. We had done something kind of bizarre. We had booked an all-inclusive vacation starting on the Sunday, the Sunday of the weekend. My husband went on the Friday, and then I only went for the Saturday. But again, it was such a bizarre experience. The run was a run. I managed to do that okay. I was not a good runner at the time. We ended up back at the bar. And at the time, we weren't that big into costuming. A lot of people who stayed at the hotel did change. It was my first event. I didn't know anything about it. I had my stinky, sweaty running clothes on. And here we are partying in your stinky, sweaty running clothes. The bar had a pool table. And they had put up some sort of board on the pool table because they didn't want people playing pool. They didn't want people ruining the pool table. But of course, hashers were up on this board dancing on top of the pool table. And my husband, Moonman, says to me, you see that guy over there? I want you to go up to him and like pants him. And I said, that's not very polite. He goes, oh no, in the hash, women can do that to men, but men can't do that to women. I thought that's awfully a double standard, but okay. And I came up to him, I thought, I can't just go up and pants a guy. That's very rude. You have to give them something in return. So I started dancing, and this was penicillin. So I started dancing with him, and by this point, I'm sober because I'm the one who's the designated driver to get us back to our house so we can get to the airport in the morning. So I'm completely sober at this point. My husband's 3 sheets to the wind. But I start dancing with penicillin. And then again, I've discovered that I can be a little bit more liberated and free. And so I'm dancing rather provocatively. And then I start to shimmy his pants down as I dance with him. And penicillin demonstrated his name very aptly.
Okay, we'll just leave that visual with everybody. Let's talk about the expansion of your hashing world. You found it in Wichita. You got home eventually with Moonman jumping into Hogtown and Toronto hashing. You joined. What about the world of travel hashing?
We decided to take a tour, and we did a couple of hashes and an away hash. We did both Erie and Nittany Valley that one year. And that was like a eye-opening, totally eye-opening. It was like, wow, this is crazy fun though. It took me a while to get out of my shell though, I must confess. When my husband told me to flash my boobs at Sir Licks-a-Lot in Erie, and I said, no, no, I wasn't ready for that yet. And then in Nittany, they had the outdoor portable makeshift showers that were literally just a structure with that plastic stuff you put on the wall for a waterproof membrane, literally, that you get from Home Depot around. And those things are opaque. And then shower, that was their shower. And I had a tough time with that because that was early in the career for me. But you get used to it and you think, again, this is fun, this is liberating, I can buck conventions. And for me personally, I have never had any negative sexual experiences at the Hash. I've never had anyone coming on to me inappropriately, following me inappropriately. So I've been very fortunate that I know that not everyone's been that lucky, but for me, it felt very safe. And I could be that way because it was safe. I think a lot of it had to do because everyone knew that I was firmly coupled up with my husband, which is a sad statement. That's what you need to be safe with the Hash. But generally, I've not had a problem. And most people I know have not had a problem with that. So it's a liberating place to express yourself without feeling that's an invitation to everyone who wants to come on.
Let's talk about your self-described, I wasn't much of a runner. How did hashing affect your life that way?
I was not much of a runner. I did run in university because I did like the fitness aspect. But then in grad school, you get so busy that fitness goes out the door. So I started running with the Hash and it was like, I was a crappy runner. I'm still a very slow runner, but I'm not a crappy runner anymore. It was great because it was social. There was nobody was egging you on. Come on, faster, let's go. I don't do well with that kind of thing. It was, oh, you want to walk for a while? Let's walk for a while. Okay. Do you want to run for a while? Okay, let's run for a while. It was not a race. People tease you for being dead fucking last, DFL, and I'm certainly that all the time, even now when I'm a good runner. But it's such gentle teasing that you don't feel that you're actually being criticized for being slow. And I liked that a lot. So that's what kept me coming out. And that's what kept me running. And the next thing, it's like, oh, maybe I'll go out for a run on my own. And the next thing is, oh, okay, the Hash is not giving me enough exercise. Now I need to go out and run on my own. And next thing you know, you're running marathons. So that's the progression there. And yet I owe it all to the Hash, not just the Hash and the way it gently introduced me to running, but also there's a lot of people there who will gently coach you on what you can or should do if you want to go further.
What about your first herring? How long did it take you to get involved in that?
Oh, okay. Probably less than a year. My husband and I set a trail together. And if I remember correctly, it was Boxing Day. So having a bar to go to was not in the cards. So we decided to have the Hashers over at our place and we cooked food and I baked bread bowls and we made chili so that people could put chili in the bread bowl. It was a great idea. And my first experience with Hashers eating was, oh my God, they're all vultures. They've eaten everything I have in the house. What can I put else? Can I put out? Oh my God. Because we had, I'm Slavic, and in the Slavic culture, the point is to have so much food that you never run out. Because if you run out, it's the biggest insult you can give to your guests. It means that you didn't prepare enough food. So this was like horrifying to me. I didn't prepare enough food. It was just like, they just did that. It was locusts, plague of locusts. Everything was gone. So that was my first experience of hosting a Hash with food. You have to make even more than you thought you did because you come back from a run, you're hungry. And then you drink some more beer and you're more hungry.
Do you remember stepping into mismanagement or stepping into helping out at events?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I'm an easy mark. If you ask me to do something, I usually say yes. So I can't remember. So I usually would just help out with stuff. And I think the first big mismanagement thing that I had was Interhash 2005. I had given birth 10 months earlier. So I wasn't really able to be on the organizing committee, but I did say that I would organize and take care of the Sunday Walkers Trail. Someone came up with the idea that it would not be just a plain walking trail, it would be a picture hash. Facebook, this is 2005. So this is before Facebook. This is before smartphones. This is before anything online can assist you. So it was literally, I went around and I took photographs with a old style digital camera of various notable landmarks. You would go to the start and there'd be a picture, 2 or 3 pictures around of a landmark that you then had to visually find from where you were, go to that landmark and look for the next picture. And so it went. And I laid it with Mrs. Robinson, and I can't remember some other hasher who was not a local hasher. The 3 of us laid it together, and I laid it pushing my 10-month-old in a stroller while laying that trail.
So that was Inter Americas in Toronto, 2005 in the fall. What else do you remember about that weekend?
I couldn't stay at the hotel because I had to be pumping and running back to feed the 10-month-old. That's about it. The sheer scale of the event blew me away. Because of kids, I've not actually been to any other interhashes yet. That's on my bucket list. I really want to go, but it just hasn't happened yet. So the sheer scale of event was just like mind-boggling and blew my head. I like that, but I think most of my events have been much smaller. Actually, it's not fair. I lived in DC for a while and hashed various DC hashes, and their red dress run is, again, mind-boggling. I'm somewhere in the middle of the pack, and you look ahead and there's a ribbon of red-dressed people, and you look behind and there's another ribbon of red-dressed people, and it's almost like a religious experience. This is awe-inspiring.
Yeah. After that, Inter Americas was the start of a women's hash in Toronto.
Yes.
What do you remember about the start of the Twat hash?
Apparently, from what I understand, is Halfwit and New Shoes broke up, and Halfwit, I don't know if it was true or not, but in her opinion, she felt uncomfortable at the Hogtown hash, so she decided to start a women's only hash. And people were very negative. There's a lot of people said, why do we need another hash? We've got too many already. We've got this. But she was determined and adamant, and she started it, and she did a really good job. So I was there at the inaugural trail. And then several years later, she passed it on to Sex Toy, and Cougar took it on. And then Cougar started a pink dress run for charity for breast cancer research. And then when Cougar left, I took it on. And I was the GM of the...
As GM, yeah.
Yeah, I was the GM of the Twat for 3 or 4 years. I always encourage people, especially for something like the Twat, to take on, even for Hogtown, to take on the GM-ship for more than a year, because after a year, you finally figured out the job. You need to continue. That expertise needs to live on for a long time, for a little bit longer. I discourage the new GM every year concept, especially for smaller hashes. If you've got a big hash, some of the DC hashes, which get 150 people out on a regular run, then yes, you have a GM, but you have a whole large mismanagement team that already has that expertise that you can draw on to tap for the next GM, because they're already in the thick of things. They're already doing all the work, so they know what's going on. You're carrying on the expertise from year to year. But in a smaller hash where there's less people to do the work, and so one person does a lot more things, I think it's a good idea to keep that expertise for longer than a year. So that's all a roundabout way of saying I was GM for 4 years and then started looking for someone to pass it on to, because 4 years was enough. But what I did is I took on a co-GM in my 4th year to try and get some of that training up and passing on thing. I thought that worked fairly well.
You've taken other mismanagement roles in the Toronto hashes too.
Yes, I can't remember what else I've done. I've done lots of little roles, but I did RA for a while, and that's what I said, I'm going to be RA for a couple of years so that I can train myself up to take on the GM ship. And then I took on the GM ship, and I've been the GM for the past 2 years. And I think if we had someone who was ready and willing to take it on, I'd give it up this year, but I'm not sure that we do. I have to start actually scoping that territory out. But definitely next year should be my last year passed on to the next person.
And how's the mismanagement changeover handled? Who gets in and how's that work?
It varies. Some years we've done it by election. Most of the times what sort of happens is that the outgoing GM sort of prepares a slate They either tap people or ask around who's interested in these positions and prepares a slate. And then it's okay, here are the people who the outgoing GM thinks are ready and are interested and willing to take, and willing, but pretty much ready, willing, and able to take on the position. And then presents that slate. But sometimes we've had elections, and from my opinion, I think the years when we've had elections, we've had a less effective mismanagement than when it's the tapping. Because again, remember, we have a small cadre of people, we have a small group of people. You pretty much know who's been around long enough to know the drill, to do the stuff. And you can say, look, I think you'll do well as GM. Would you like to take it on? And if someone says no, you don't want to impose the position on them, because then they're not going to do a good job because they don't want it.
But I think over the years, I remember there's been some handovers of the committee, and people were indeed surprised with the role that was given to them.
I'm sure that's happened. But again, if you're going to appoint someone GM without having them know that you're going to do that, you pretty much know that the person will take it on. They'll take on the responsibility. They probably wouldn't have if you had asked, but they will do it and they'll do a good job. So there's value in that too. I personally would not do that. I don't think I have the chutzpah to do that, but I can imagine that some hashers in Hogtown would definitely have the chutzpah, have the knowledge to say this person will do a great job. They'll say no if I ask them, but if it's a fait accompli, they'll do a fabulous job. So I can see some people being able to do that, and I can't pull that off.
Let's talk about the last 25 years, things over the hash. What do you see the role of alcohol having been integrated with the hash, and has that changed in the last 25 years?
Yes, it has changed very much. It used to be all about the beer. We are a little bit less beer motivated now. Not that the people who are into beer are still beer motivated, but because there are people who want to hash but don't want to drink. We instituted a non-drinking hash cash because we do have expenses other than the beer. Like we have all the electronic media dissemination things that need to be covered, website. So we do have a small fee for non-hashers just to cover that kind of stuff. But that's a new thing. I went through 2 pregnancies, hashing the entire time, paying full hash cash and not drinking a drop. That was the people we were thinking of when we said, let's institute a non-drinking. So we do have a non-drinking hash cash fee to encourage people to come out even if they don't want to drink. The other thing that we've done is we've started introducing a lot of sometimes wine or non-beer drinks, because we have some people who are gluten intolerant, or we have some people who just don't like beer but do like wine or do like a spritzer. So we've tried to accommodate that. That would have been verboten when I first started. It's like, you don't like beer, get out of here.
Cool. What about some stories of things gone wrong, white powder events? Were you there for any of those things?
We were just talking about this yesterday. We feel the Terry Fox team. For those people who don't live in Canada, Terry Fox was a person. He wasn't even an athlete when he started, as far as I know, who got bone cancer and had a leg amputated and decided he was going to raise awareness about cancer research in general, and started this run across Canada. Didn't make it, died before he finished, but he was pretty much running at the length of a marathon every day for like some 100 and something days. Since he died, he started a foundation. His foundation has held an annual Terry Fox run where people run a set course, not a marathon, and just 4 or 5K, and raise money for cancer research. And for the past 7 years, Hogtown has been fielding a team. It's usually in the morning. So after that run, we go back to some hasher's place and have a potluck lunch. So we did that yesterday, and at there we were discussing literally all the white powder events. And we have a great park near where I live that we were just talking. We don't use flour at all because there's so many dog walkers who are very antsy and will call the authorities, and we will get either police or fire trucks or occasionally hazmat teams out looking at the powder. My favorite white powder story, it was a pink dress run in the northeast end of the city. Sex Toy and Cougar probably laid that trail. And we ran through a place called Sherwood Forest. There was actually a place called Sherwood Forest, very beautiful, nice trails. And there were lobs of flour there. And the fire truck came out to figure out what's going on here. And as we saw them, oh yeah, it's just flour. We're running a trail, and they started asking us questions. But the upshot ended up is two things. One, we ended up getting a lot of funky photos of hashers draped all over the fire truck. And it turns out that my husband's cousin, he wasn't there, but his squad was there. So my husband asked, oh, my cousin, blah, 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 blah. And they said, oh, yeah, we know him. And so apparently, like later on that day, my husband gets a call from his aunt. Johnny, I hear you were running around Toronto in a dress. So that was interesting how small the world is sometimes.
Let's talk about the pink dress hash. A lot of hashes have charity runs. A lot of them have colored dress runs. A pink dress is a very specific event.
Yes. So it's the pink dress run for breast cancer research. Everybody wears a dress. That should come as no surprise to hashers, and usually pink or some shade of pink. We try to run through more populated areas in order to get the visual awareness part. And then we end up somewhere and have the usual party on drinks, beer, wine, because remember now we do wine, food, and hopefully dancing if we can swing it.
There's been times I know carried buckets along and collected money during the run. Do you remember any of that?
I don't remember ever doing that. I also would be very loath to do that because it's just that people don't like to give money to a bucket that they don't know where it's going to. What we do is we give out little cards saying that we're running for breast cancer research, and then a link where they can donate money to.
So you just did Terry Fox, and the pink dress is
next week.
Dress is coming up.
Yeah, next week. Last year, the Terry Fox run was the Fat Girl Trail for the pink dress run because they were back to back. Everyone said, let's not do that again. Let's not do that again.
What about these traveling events? You mentioned Nittany, Erie. What are some of the other ones that you, at various times, were your favorites or people you like to see at these things?
For a while there, my husband and I were going to the Erie anniversary weekend every year. And it was, we just got to know the people so well. The first year would have been 2001. And the second year, 2002, they moved to this pagan clothing optional campground. And let me tell you, there was nothing that we could do that the pagans would bat an eyelash at. It was perfect fit. They loved us. We loved them. It was great. They would come check us out every once in a while. We would go check them out every once in a while. It was perfect. And so I enjoyed that venue. I enjoyed the people. And we went every year. We definitely stopped during COVID because the borders were closed and the events were closed. And then we started going to the Ottawa Red Dress Run, which is on Canada Day weekend. And the Erie anniversary weekend is almost always on the same weekend around the 4th of July. They used to be later on in July, and then we could have done both, but they've been in the same weekend, so it's like a toss-up. You have to pick which one. So I really enjoy getting to see some of the people in Ottawa. You've got Backwash, you've got Man Sauce, you've got Slips and Slides, you've got, can't even name them all by name. There's so many people there. Frodo. Who else is? Clog Nozzle. Just I'm drawing a blank because there's just so many people there that we see on a regular basis.
The campground that Erie used called Brushwood. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember one thing distinctly was you could use crypto to buy stuff there. You could use Bitcoin back when it was worth something that you would buy just a little trinket with. When it was worth about $14, for a Bitcoin.
I know that I've never seen that. I'm not sure that we might have stopped going by the time they started doing Bitcoin stuff.
That was in the early mid-2000s.
Really? Oh, that's
it didn't come up. There were a couple stands that just selling. You could get a massage for Bitcoin or something.
I didn't.
350-pound naked pagan. Yeah.
But I bet you the massage was good.
Yeah. What about what else has changed over the hash? Like say, you haven't been going to the giant international events with family, but have you seen changes in what hashing is in the last 25 years?
That's a good question. I think that it depends on the kennel and where you go. Some people haven't changed at all, but some people are becoming more aware of the safety feature that I talked about that I am fortunate enough to be oblivious to because I'm so firmly coupled up. Also, I think there's a lot more tolerance for not drinking. So having a stunt drunk instead of forcing someone to chug their beer. COVID changed a lot. We used to, in Hogtown, we used to do a bedpan. That bedpan is not coming back ever.
Right, the communal drinking vessel.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. The communal drinking vessel is gone. That's not going to come back anytime soon. And I'm not just because at the Twat we also would do communal, but now it's like you get it if everybody gets a can and they do their downs from their can as much or as little as they want. If you're at a bar, we ask for a bunch of glasses. If you get a down, you keep your glass for your next down so that we don't shuffle glasses. But that's all pandemic related. What other things that have been more prolonged over the space of the 25 years? Yeah, I would just say that we're a lot more gentle on people not insisting that they drink. But again, it depends on the kennel.
You mentioned a lot of people and people's lives change and they move on and other things happen. So you're one of the people from the late 90s that is still very active hashing. Not everybody is in the community. And Toronto's managed to keep influxes of new people. Not every club's been able to do that.
Oh, we're having troubles with that too. So if you want words of wisdom on how we do it, we have none. I have no words of wisdom on that. We're trying to figure it out too. It's very hard to attract new people. Again, we were just talking about this yesterday. We have one hasher who says, "Oh, I invite everyone to the hash. It's very interesting." You can tell they didn't like it. They never come back. So it is difficult. You can't just invite anyone to the hash because there really is a type of personality that will get it and a type of personality that will be completely put off by it. And you don't want to mix those two up. So it is difficult. It is, but at the same time, you do have people like me who need to be gently introduced to it and given a few more exposures to it just to decide that they do like it rather than just my husband is like, this is the best thing ever. Where's this been all my life? I didn't have that experience. It was more like that was interesting. It's like, okay, my husband wants me to go. Let's go. Let's give it another shot. It's like, okay, that wasn't so bad. That was even better. You need to figure out how to attract both of those types of people. And what the secret is, I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't know. We were on Meetup for a while, but that attracted pretty much one family to us. That's the Blurry Beaver and First Lady family. But other than that, we've not had much success with it. And we found that it's starting to get too expensive. So we weaned ourselves off of that just quite recently. We went another route. We've refocused on our webpage. And what I actually spent spring doing is I built this thing using free available software through Google where I give people in the hash a link. They go to that link and it's basically a fill in the form link. You have a drop down menu that says, here's the next hashes coming up for the next 2 months, saying it's actually the next 15 hashes. And when you click on the hash, it auto populates any information that we already have about that hash in the fields. And then if you say, so you can see, oh, so-and-so signed up for that hash, so let me pick another one. Or you could say, I signed up for this hash. I put my name down and I clicked submit. So now that my name is definitely associated with that hash, but you can come back later and update it as you go. And every time you update it, it updates our webpage automatically. So the webpage is the most current information about the hash that we have. The problem is getting people used to looking at the hash page because people have gotten unused to that. So we have Facebook to communicate, but our Facebook group is closed and we like to keep it that way. So how else do we attract people? Some people have toyed with the idea of Instagram, but then that's another thing that everyone has to sign up for because you want to have a vibrant community. Otherwise, no one's going to be interested in it. So it's a conundrum that we're dealing with, and we still haven't fixed it. But I'm pretty pleased with my hash form. Probably what I would like to do is I would like to set up a template and post it online somewhere so that other hashes, if they want to do something, can just pretty much take my code and do the same template and adjust it for their own needs. That's something that I could do. I just been meaning to. I just haven't gotten around to it. Now that I've said it on the podcast, I'm going to have to do it because I'm committed now.
Yeah, we'll be publishing this right away too, because I took a little hiatus getting my other podcast really built it in. The on podcast is back, and everybody will see and say, "Where's it been? I didn't realize it was gone." And now Flab's on. One other thing that's interesting, I think you included with this is the who's coming list.
Yes.
For every trail.
Yeah, because people did say they liked to see who was coming on Meetup. So we were trying to reproduce the Meetup functionality much cheaper, and we did. It's for free. So I use Google. I have the script using Google App Script. It automatically, whenever you fill out the form, the script form, it automatically generates a Google form for people to RSVP. And that link to that RSVP form automatically goes on the web page. And then also from the RSVP form, there's a link to see who's coming. So who's RSVP'd already. That's all done automatically with hands off from me. And I'm loving the hands off part. So our trails are up. And people say, "Oh, when's the trails?" Like, you know what? If it's not on the web page, then I don't think the hare knows either.
Yeah, to me, it's really great. When we host a hash at our house, you basically get a 90% accurate who's coming any week. It's fantastic. Yeah.
That's been a slog to get people to get used to that. Often when we have outdoor beer checks and awnings, I've had times where I've had 3 people RSVP, and then we get 15 people coming. I didn't buy 15 times 2 beers. I bought 3 times 2 plus a little bit of extra for slosh. So it's caused some trouble. So I think people are starting to get the hang of it that you should RSVP for those kinds of issues. And it's helped a lot. Yeah.
Nice 25 years right in the middle of hashing, going through COVID, surviving 30 years earlier in different parts of the world would recognize the hash. What do you think the hash will be 30 years from now? Is it going to be around? Would we recognize it? What do you think?
To me, the core elements of the hash are escapism from your daily grind, societal conventions, societal pressures. And no matter what the hash morphs into, I think those will stay key. In that respect, I think we will always be able to recognize the hash. And if those things don't stay key, then as far as I'm concerned, it's not the hash anymore. Right?
One thing that's big for anyone who's hashed in Toronto for a while or visited is the tradition of the anniversary weekend. That has had to go through transitions just because things change too. It certainly was visited by the Rumson gang, Mr. Jackson, all those guys, Ian Cumming, a lot of people, the Ottawa gang. There's been a lot of people have been to a Toronto anniversary weekend, and things had to change with the demise of the hotel. So what are your best memories of the anniversary weekend?
So my best memory of the anniversary weekend is actually not from a hasher. It's from the concierge at the Days Inn Hotel, right? And I remember this so funny. I come up to the front desk to check in, and I recognize the guy. He's like a 50-something East Indian guy, and I recognize him. I'm going like, "Weren't you here last year?" And he goes, "Yes, every year. I request this weekend. I have seniority." So this guy would actively choose to work that weekend because he enjoyed watching us so much. That's my favorite memory from that hotel ever. Everything else is very hash typical. That's why it stands out, because it's so unique. But yet it is also hash typical. It's like some people get us, some people don't.
It's a great thing. One thing we always talk about when reminiscing, the hotel went out of business, knocked itself down, and we had to move. One of the funny thing is, after the Saturday run, everyone who had been there before was in the know was get back to the hotel get your shower before the hot water runs
Water
out.
runs. Yes. Yep, that's exactly correct. And that hash hotel spoiled us because we were trying to find a replacement. It's so hard. It was downtown-ish. Okay, so it's not central Toronto, but it's in a very central area where there's places that people can go. If people come to the hash, Toronto hash, a lot of them would come for Toronto because some people would dink off on the Saturday and go see the sights in Toronto. We'd always have that downtown trail on Friday in Toronto. People like that. And if people didn't like the breakfast the hotel provided, they could always walk to literally 1,000 variant options where they could pick what they could choose. We were close to the lakeshore, so if we wanted to do trail without getting on a bus, we could. At first, they had the bar beside them, and then they built that conference room in the basement. And the first year when we decided to use that as our Friday night venue, worked so well. It was unbelievable. Everyone was like, we had so many hashers, old time hashers going, this is horrible. It's going to be terrible. Nobody wants to party in the basement of a hotel. Let me tell you, it's not the best. It really is a basement. The ceilings are low. You've got pillars in the middle. It is not, you do not think a party room. But we rented a dance floor. We had the sound equipment for the band. We just set it up in the basement. And then Golden Showers just came in and took over DJ-ship. And it was a great time. People had a fabulous time that night. And it was like, okay, there we go. So that place had everything. And it was close to Legion's so that you could have your Saturday dinner at some place at a bigger venue. It just had it all, and we're spoiled because we can't find anything that reproduces all of the above, and we have to start removing things off of our wish list. We've been looking for the past 2 years to try and find a replacement venue. Like Niagara Falls was just temporary. And I'm at a loss. I've spent so many hours online looking for hotels, going to visit the hotels, and it's just crazy. The hotel was small enough that we could book the whole thing up and literally take it over. And it, like I said, it spoiled us. It just really spoiled. It was a perfect venue. We were having a tough time replacing it.
So people, if you can get into Canada, Niagara Falls, Canada, in early mid-November.
Yeah, in November. Yeah, it's the Rego just went up today on Hashspace. So if you look for Hogtown and Hashspace, you will find it. And it's November 10th, 11th, 12th weekend.
Perfect. One other thing, there's a lot of quirks. The onesies.
Oh yes, that's okay. We did that twice. Twice does not make a tradition, right?
I swear I have a whole bin full of onesies.
We had the pig onesie, we had the dinosaur onesie, and then we had the nun costume. But the nun costume was not a onesie, and that's it. So we did it 3 times. I have one thing that I wanted to touch on that we haven't touched on yet, and that's the kids at the hash. Kids at the hash. So I mentioned that I went through 2 pregnancies while hashing and delivered, and we continued hashing afterwards, both my husband and I. I have to credit CH4, DC Harriet's and Harriers, Hash House Harriet, DC Harriet's. I can't remember. My God, that's terrible.
DC Hash House Harriers and Harriets.
Thank you. That's the one. For teaching me that one can have kids on trail. I was there before kids in DC, and I joined them because they ran more my speed. White House was very fast. The Harriets was a lot slower pace. I could keep up with them. The reason they were slower is they're a family hash, and you had literally kids would come out, they'd be pushing their kids in jogging strollers. And I thought, okay, this is doable. So when we came back, we were like one of the first people to have kids to bring them to the hash on a regular basis. That's not fair because I understand that Shithead and Lizard used to bring their kids, forgot the kid's name. They would bring her out all the time, I understand, but that was before my time. For me, this was like I introduced it to the hash, and we would bring the kids in the jogging stroller, and then other people would start bringing their kids as well. A lot of people stop hashing when they have kids. For Moonman and me, it was our lifeline. We set up the system. I don't know how we set it up, but it turned out to be just perfect. It was every other hash in Toronto is your hash. And if you don't feel like going to that hash, your partner can go and you lose your turn because the next hash is still there. And that was because like you come home from work, the kids are annoying, you're so tired. Oh, I don't have time or energy to go. But if I don't go this hash, I don't get to go next hash either. So get your butt out there. And then you go out and you have the relief from your kids. Like I said, it's escapism. You escape your kids, you escape your daily grind. You have such a great time, a great fun. And you come home rejuvenated and refreshed and ready to handle the kids. The next time your spouse goes hashing and you have to be stuck at home with the kids by yourself. So that technique worked so well for us because, like I said, it was a motivator to get out. Because if you didn't go out this time, you lost. Too bad. 2 weeks. You have to wait 2 weeks before you can go again.
There are a lot of traditions. They keep bubbling up. Re-gift hash.
Oh yes, yes. Other hashers not do that. I think other hashers do that. I'm pretty sure we did that in DC. Like DCH4 did that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I was at a hash in San Francisco. I can't even remember whose it was. It was not Gypsies in the Palace. It was a Saturday hash. I was there for a conference, and they had a regifting hash too. And so I managed to grab some sort of swag off of one of the conference display booths. I think it was one of these things. It was like a little magnet pod with the little people that kind of fling them together and make funky shapes. Wasn't that one of the what's called the desirable gifts that year? So regifting hash. So the rule is that everyone has to bring something, and you pick numbers out of a hat, and you decide whether the lowest number goes first, the highest number goes first. And if you're the first person, you pick something from the collection of gifts and you unwrap it. And seeing as you're the first person, that's where it stops. The second person can either choose to steal your gift or go pick an unwrapped gift. And so it goes. And so you can imagine once 5 or 6 people have picked stuff, like there becomes this desired gift that everyone's stealing. Now, there's another rule that if someone stole something from you on this round, you can't steal it back on this round. You have to wait till the next round. Spouses would get together. It's okay, someone stole it from me, so my spouse is going to steal it back from them. That kind of thing. And it gets really heated. And I remember a couple of years in a row, Rosé brought this bull statue. I think it's something financial district themed bull statue. And that, for some reason, became the hot commodity that year. And then it showed up again at the regifting the next year. And it was again the hot commodity. But then the third year it came up and nobody wanted it anymore. And whoever got it first got stuck with it.
What's your view on mismanagement going forward? As your kids are grown, how eager are you or willing are you? Are you still a say yes to everything asked? Once you let go of GM, do you think you'll get back into it in the coming years too?
Yeah, I do expect, because we have a small hash. So the number of people willing to do stuff is small. So I am not going to give up on this management for myself. I definitely am going to take another role, hopefully with some meat to it so that I can help the hash continue. What that will be, it's pretty much whatever needs being done. Once I give up the GM ship, I'll just take on whatever needs being done. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get to do a travel, like a big interhash event soon. Right now, the kids are old enough, and both my husband and I both have no more parental care issues. Sadly, that just recent development. We have no more parents to take care of. But so hopefully we get to do some traveling and see what's what out there, have some fun, go to one of these big events and be totally blown away and overwhelmed and lost in the crowd.
Okay, so we'll mention again the website link where people can find you in case they say, we want to do that on our hash. Can you help us out?
Oh, there is no link yet. I'm not going to give out the link to my page. It's the security protocols are not top notch. So someone could come in and mess things up. We do keep a log so that if someone does come up and do some malicious actions, we can reconstruct. But I'm not giving out the link for that. At some point when I get that done, I'll contact you with a link to the template, and then you can add that to your comment section.
Cool. Since Moon Man's not here, he's part of a hash band.
Yes, he is. Yes, they're called Ultimate and the Assholes. The person who started it is Ultimate Asshole, and that's how the name came up to be. And they have been playing at Anniversary Weekend for many years now. I don't even know how many.
I think the first 20 or so was Sin City Boys. And then since then, it's pretty much been Ultimate and the Assholes.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question. How is it to be married to the bass player?
Bass player is only one of his many faces. He introduced me to hashing. He's a fun guy, and he's very considerate. So there's lots of things I love about him. The bass playing is, that's just one more thing. It's not what drives me wild.
I'm always joking with sent the Moon Man a cartoon the other day. A woman was bragging she slept with one of the band members and then regretfully found out it was just the bass player. Anyhow, you're a great couple. It's great talking to you, Flab. I'll get this out right away.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing it.
On.
On.
To close the circle, here's the Hash Anthem sung by Mother Hash.
Swing low, sweet child.